So, welcome to the speaking podcast, and I've got a lovely guest back again, Ambika Devi. And basically, Ambika has done a lot on the speaking podcast, and by popular demand, a lot of people have asked for more. For example, in number 46, she done vocal warm up. In 32, how to breathe properly. But not only that, she's also done some lovely meditation, and she's number one with the downloads in the meditation podcast. Did you know that, Ambika?
I didn't know that. Wow, Roy.
Yes, yes.
I love it. You're my favorite podcaster. What can I say?
You're my favorite guest because no editing. I love it. It's fun. So
Oh, that's great.
I love doing continuous improvement. I believe that if you want to master your skills, sharpening the saw, and you're doing that, and I know you're doing that. So you're improving. You're trying to be the best at public speaking. So you've done some stuff recently. Please tell me about it.
Okay, so recently, well, I've been in Toastmasters and you're a Toastmaster leader. And there's the international contest going on right now. I'm going to the next level in two categories, in table topics and the international speech contest. So I've won at my club level and then going on to the next level. And the proximal categories or levels of the contest are coming up pretty rapidly. And then I'll be at the conference in Fort Lauderdale, Florida in the beginning of May. I pitched to be a speaker, so it's my backup if I'm not in the contest at that point, but of course I hope I will be. I'll pitch to give a presentation at the conference. So one way or another, I'll be speaking at that conference. And as you know, I've been studying with Eric Edmeades for a year. For a year. I first met him in Tallinn, where we met in 2018. And I instantly said, this is the guy I want to continue studying with. And I invested in putting myself in his classes. And a lot of them have been online, which are great. He makes amazing videos and courses like Wild Fit and Inception Marketing, Business Freedom, and the Speakers Academy, the Business Freedom Speakers Academy, which is now Speaker Nation. I love the name. And I had taken the level 1 in Oslo, Norway last summer in 2019. And this past November, I went down to the Dominican Republic where Eric lives with a small group. So much smaller. The original class was a little over 50. This next class was 16 of us. So it was much, much more intimate, and we really took it to the next level. I loved it also because a support from my original team in the summertime was also support in November in Dominican Republic. Joanna Mercado, I love her. She's an amazing speaker, does leadership talks, and she'd be great for your show. And my good friend Rusty Lee, who's a fellow writer, was also in the Dominican Republic. And we've teamed up with each other to write and edit and coach writers and lead workshops and retreats. So those will be coming in the future, and you'll definitely have Rusty on the show as well.
Yes, we've made contact, so I look forward to that one.
Yeah, absolutely. And so in the original inception level, beginning level of the Speakers Academy, we learned about speech mapping and a lot of techniques to get comfortable about getting on stage. This more advanced level, we focused even more intensely on speech mapping, talking about how to take off into a speech. Eric calls it an F-15. It's like an F-15 plane that has to use a large percentage of its fuel to get off the ground. And he really gave us incredible information about crafting that. He brought in a really close friend of his named Bruce Music, who's from South Africa, has a lovely accent, much like you, but a little different. And he had worked in NLP for many, many years. And he taught us a 4-quadrant idea about starting with the why. Are you familiar with Simon Sinek's book?
Indeed, yes.
Start with the why. Wow. Having Bruce talk about just the why and then these other concepts was so helpful with understanding how to get our way through not just an entire speech, but crafting a story. And Eric is unbelievable at helping us become clear at finding the point. What's the point? What are the points we're trying to get across in a story? And we had the opportunity to work on multiple points in a single story or small portions of stories with multiple points, a point for each.
I just like to say as well that of all the speakers that I've seen, because I've seen a lot, he'd be in the top three, Eric, and he's also worked with Tony Robbins, so that just shows the caliber that he is. So I believe you're dealing with the best out there.
Wow, I know I am. He's just incredible. So we'll definitely put links out for him so you can find him and get into some of his workshops. So speech mapping. One of the things that Eric really enforces is get away from trying to list things. Now we know if we've seen speakers who have a piece of paper and they're reading word for word what's going on, it turns into kind of but, sometimes we do need some cues. And even Eric will say, don't be afraid to have a speech map on stage. He taught us that if your stage is on a riser, so you're above the audience, there's no problem with taking a huge piece of paper and putting your speech map and taping it to the stage, which is brilliant. And just doing it in huge, big, bold markers so that you can really read everything. And he teaches us how to map in a circle. Then he encourages us to use images. So look, you may not be the best at drawing, but any cartoon or stick kind of thing that you can make that triggers the idea of what you're trying to get across is much better than putting a word, because as soon as our brain sees and processes a word through our eyes, we're starting to feel like we've got to say that exact word. So putting a phrase can trip you up. Sure, if you have a quote that you need, it's understandable. You might want to write the quote out so you do it properly and remember to say who the quote was by. I also make arrows, and so let me show you one of my speech maps that I made while I was down there. So you can see it goes around in a circle, and there's all kinds of little cues, words, and images.
Nice colors as well. Nice colors as well.
Well, that's something that I really need. And the different colors kind of trigger moods and things for me. So that's why I use them. I have plenty of friends who just use a black or a blue or whatever color shows up. That's something I learned back when I was teaching art, that we all identify and are able to read and take in information with different color backgrounds. So it makes sense to me that if we're using a white background, different color pens work too. If you've got an app like Color Note, you can change the sticky note colors, play around with it, and notice if when you switch from, say, blue to purple or yellow to green, that you notice that you can understand and see the words better. This was something we used to use with kids when I was teaching in, I think it was in elementary school. I was teaching art for a very short stint. I did a little more in high school and then a long time in college. But what we did was we had color film like you use on theatrical lights, and we would put it over what they had to read, and we would figure out which color worked for them. And then every kid had their own color. And anything they had to read, they would move the color to the next page, and their comprehension skyrocketed.
Interesting.
Something to help. I don't know if it works for memory, but give it a try. It very well could.
Excellent.
Now, another thing about the speeches that Eric is great at teaching, like I mentioned earlier, is the takeoff. It's always good to have a joke in there if you can, but don't force it. I've had plenty of belly flops trying to put a joke that I heard. Comedy is an art form all to itself, and understanding how to set up a joke and not give your punchline away. I'm the kind of jokester that likes to do it on the fly and quip back and forth. That's why I love being interviewed rather than just sitting and talking myself. I love that interaction, and it just sparks my intuition and my creativity. In that takeoff, it's so important to have a why, like Simon Sinek talks about. And the more reduced it is, the more concentrated it is, the better. Ask your friends, talk to other people who do speaking, test it out on them. When you get a hit from the audience and an impact, whether it's a laugh, and oh, or a wow, or you see their eyes open up more, you know, you just hit really good impact level. So it's so important to talk in front of live audiences as often as you can. A friend of mine from the Speaker Academy that is really great at comedy, he suggests that you really work on just those skills in front of larger audiences, because a smaller audience of only 10, and often our Toastmasters groups might only have 10 or 12, they won't necessarily give you the impact. And because they're used to you, it's a little harder to get a rise out of them on a joke. It's not impossible, but it's always good with a fresh, larger audience. So whenever you have the opportunity to speak, go do it. And this is another thing that I want to share from my wisdom of the most recent studying trip with Eric. And that is, you got to pay your dues. You've got to go out there and speak for free and do interviews and offer up what you're doing to groups and organizations. Get in front of as many different kinds of organizations that you can, because then you can take the same speech idea and create different points. That's also really brilliant. So you're really honing what your signature speech is, because you can then do it with the same stories, but accentuate different points. And then there's the landing. How to land it. This is where you want to leave them with the feeling of, well, what if I tried this? Or what if I did this? Or what if I went to the back of the room and purchased whatever you've got to sell? This is where inception marketing is really important, because you learn how to not be really heavy duty salesy and leave it as more of a question without asking an obvious question. This takes some practice.
No, that's a gift, because I've seen plenty of people doing the pitch, and some of them, they do it slimy, and you can pick it up where they're saying, oh, we've got only 20 of these, and they're hoping for people to run to the end of the room. But yeah, the clever ones know how to do it properly.
Yes. And slides, whatever you've got on the slides behind you. If you're using a slide, choose a social media platform. So if your Instagram already goes to your Facebook page, just put your Instagram. Instagram is the hot social media platform right now. And it makes sense because of what I said earlier. The brain really likes to communicate in visuals. Instagram is that. So when Facebook created Instagram, they were brilliant. And it's really speaking to the minds of the younger generations. So if that's who you want to talk to, by all means, but don't discount or get rid of your Facebook. Hook them together. It's super easy. Some of you may not even know that you can have 5 Instagram accounts. So your main account can have 4 more. If you're a multipreneur like me, That's really awesome.
In the gym, I've got a lot
Because you can have one for your, like you, Roy, you can have one for your
of,
podcast and one for your other podcast. I can have one for my coaching and one for speaking and one for me as an astrologer. And they don't necessarily all group up in the same place. And one for me if I want to take pictures of my food, you know?
Oh, brilliant. And no, because like even going back to the humor, like I've noticed that, and what I find as well is if you have a written speech that it's all A to Z, I call it, you can't really incorporate what the previous speakers have said. Whereas if you're speaking from the heart and you use like the mind maps, if somebody says something that you can put in as a joke or whether just incorporate it into your speech, people then realize that you're speaking from your heart. And I think it gets a better reception.
Definitely. And with storytelling. So in our speeches, we're telling stories. Even if in the meaty part of it, in the belly of it, you are trying to give what information, specifics, and then how to. So this is great for teachers and people who are training. There's always an important need for stories because those stories are what really pull people in and get them interested and keep them paying attention. So as you're watching things like TEDx and TED Talks, pay attention to this. Look for those stories and then look at how they bring you back into the point. There's so many brilliant speakers who have made speeches on these platforms, and as you start to look at them, you'll begin to understand, this is why I really like this particular speaker. I'm relating to their stories and I'm understanding because they're making their point by bringing me into their world and painting a picture.
Like what I do is I always kind of think, okay, well, how can I give value to the audience? Where some people, they'll do a speech and it's kind of more me. And it might be an interesting speech, but it doesn't really connect with the audience. But if you can mention something and you know that you're triggering something in the audience, then you've got a way better chance of connecting.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I was a professor for so many years. I had a captive audience for 4 hours at a time. Poor things. And I was listing. So to morph into this, well, hey, I am a storyteller. I love telling stories. I'm a writer. But when I was teaching and orating in front of a group, a captive crowd, I didn't have to. As I look back, I realized I did. I told stories, and it was stories from my life and experiences about what I was teaching. Wow, if I knew then what I know now, I would have been so popular in that school.
But it's all about continuous improvement, isn't it?
It is. It's one of my mottos is when you stop learning, you stop living.
Exactly.
So
Totally agree with you. Yeah, I actually said that at the last meeting. I said, yeah, if you're, because I'm always, I read, from 50 to 100 books. I do all different courses, masterclass, now Gaia and everything. I'm just constantly learning and I love it. And I said, if you're not growing, you're dying.
So what have you learned recently about speaking?
What have I learned recently about speaking? Well, people have asked me because I've been a judge, and I've rarely been a judge at these Toastmaster competitions. But I said I just kind of want to give back for the other clubs, and I was a judge for 2 clubs. I'm going to be next week as well. And people asked me, what advice could I give to the speakers? And what I actually told them is, I said, print off the judge's criteria first and work backwards, because you could have, and I know for myself, because there was times I had very funny speeches and I get past the club, but I would at the area, I might come third or something like that. And it was like, when I looked at the judging criteria, especially if you've got the judges that are, looking exactly at the proper points, if you know what you must cover, then you have a great chance of going forward, whether it's table topics or evaluation. So that's what I have learned. And I'm not sure, our competition now is in 2 weeks' time. I'm not sure, will I enter it or will I just try to, help some of our members to try to get onto the different levels?
Go for it. Go for it. Why not?
Yeah.
Any opportunity to get on stage and talk, take it. That's advice I want to give everybody. Don't sit back on your heels. And I think it's really valid to want to help out as a judge, but stay in the contest until you're out and then be a judge.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Why not? Go for every single speaking opportunity you can get, and then go for more, and then go for even more. Go for blogcasts, to be interviewed on paper, and then you can turn that into something with a video of yourself talking about it. Upcycle and recycle everything you talk about. If you say something brilliant in an interview and it sparks an idea, write a blog about it, make another video about it, talk to somebody else about it, make a speech about it. Every time you are out and about, you're having conversations, and I guarantee every day you get sparked to the idea of at least 3 stories. Have a story journal. This is something that Eric talks about, story journals. And he recommended Evernote. I had been using Evernote for a while, but I only had a free account. I just recently upgraded. No, I'm not getting paid by Evernote. And but the thing was, I could only use it on 2 devices, and I have more than 2 devices that I can use it on. And I might be reading in my Kindle pad, and I could come across an idea and think, wow, that triggers a story. You know, that's like something that happened to me, and I can flip over to that app and write it. And so Evernote's really amazing at being able to find your stuff just from a trigger word. And you don't even have to write a hash sign for it. So it's a good app. I know there's also Otter. People that were with me in Dominican Republic were really into Otter, because Otter will not only record an MP3, but it will also transcribe it into written word at the same time. So you can search your written word and then find the spot in your spoken word track. That's a pretty awesome tool. I haven't embarked on that one yet, but here I am. I use Zoom all the time, all the time. Some days I feel so zoomed out that I just need to go lie down on the floor. Or better yet, go out for a walk. That's another thing. Clear your head. If you feel like you're overloaded and you're working on something like a talk or a presentation, take a break.
Yeah.
Take more than an hour. Take an entire day. We did that down in the Dominican Republic. We worked really hard, and then a couple days before the end, we went out for the entire day on ATVs. And I had never ridden an ATV before, and I was so psyched. I got on and I'm riding around the paddock, and I'm getting it into second gear and around the corners and having a great time. And then we get out on the open road, and I'm hearing backfiring noises, and I was in complete denial, thinking it was a car or one of the other ATVs. It was mine. This ATV shook me up so hard that entire day, you know, and man, I could feel it in my shoulder. I still feel it a little bit in my shoulder. And it turned out to give me numerous stories that, believe it or not, I can even use with my brand. So keep a lookout for those events. Something that Eric brought up to me in the very first BFSA that really stuck is, if you're feeling an emotional response, that's a story.
Yeah.
So write it down in your journal, your notepad, however, text it to yourself.
Simple Minds. I don't know, did you ever use that? But like, I have so many, most of the speeches that I do, I just do little bullet points with little things. And now I plan to do, I want to do some more open mic. I've done one open mic, and I'm trying to capture a lot of comedy. So I'm writing all different things. So then I can do a different, you know, like 5 minutes for open mic. But I find that the Simple Minds, because everybody has their phone with them, whereas you can put it on a computer, and sometimes they don't really connect. You know, you might have it. I mean, I've tried Evernote, it just doesn't work for me. I just didn't find it that it was for me. But I like the Simple Minds. I find it's grand because I can just zoom in. So even if you're at a Toastmasters meeting and somebody doesn't turn up and they say, we need a speaker, I can just open my phone, have a quick look through, and I go, okay, I'll talk about that. And it's there straight away.
Awesome. I Evernote's, I don't know if you've ever used it. You can capture entire web pages. So when I build websites, it's really nice because it will download the whole thing the same way it looks.
Okay.
So that's another thing I use it for. So it works for me. It may not work for everybody, but thanks for that tip on Simple Minds. I love it that we're both giving tips. What else do you think the listeners and viewing audience might like from us today?
I think the most important thing is not to get complacent, because I even remember one guy telling me that he had won the final in Poland, and then he took a year off and he came back thinking he'd be at the same level, and he wasn't,
Mm.
and he got a kind of a wake up call. So, don't think that, oh yeah, I'll start speaking and then I'm grand. It's like you said earlier, keep speaking the whole time, because you need to keep your skills there and
It,
improve.
it's like weightlifting. Uh, if you don't use it, you're going to start losing it. I really think so. Sure, you could take a decent break, but a year off, I would think then you'd need to kind of start to build your way back up again.
Exactly. Another thing actually is, I don't know, do you do it in your club, but we started doing it in our club, is having a body evaluator. So there's one person that's just sitting there to just tell you, okay, you're doing this, you're doing that. I've seen people where they go up on their heels, or somebody has swinging their arm, or just how they're moving on the stage. And every single person that is a body evaluator kind of interprets it differently, and you learn from that. So if there's clubs listening, I would highly encourage having a body evaluator.
That's a brilliant idea. I do have people in my club that keep an eye on that all the time and tend to give feedback on that. But if your club is so focused on the speech and a smaller range of evaluation, that's a really great idea. That and oh, here's speaking of that, I just got another thing that woof from what I learned from Eric. There's so many things that we want to focus in on in a given talk or speech. Make little cues and put them in a bowl, or I'm sure you could do this electronically in your phone. Things like body language, uh, being more visual, being more kinesthetic, being more auditory, movement, placement. The list goes on and on and on. I'm sure you can throw some more in. And then before you go to give a speech, choose one and make that a big focus. It's kind of like the idea of what Toastmasters does with the word of the day. And then we try to put the word into what we're talking about. Also, it could be a particular type of body movement or a particular type of voice use, or oh gosh, what else can you think of that would be things that we could just add one little element to make more elevated?
Even using the stage, because I know that some people, like I tend to anchor myself when I'm speaking. Some people, if they're telling a story, they'll go from left, middle, and right as it progresses. And then there's others that kind of use it back and front. And I think that tends to be, there's very few do that where they're coming very close to the audience. But I think that has a great benefit because you're getting close and up and personal. So I think your stance on the stage has a big impact as well.
Definitely zones on the stage. You could denote areas on the stage to be for certain things, like the past is over as you're facing the audience to your right. That makes sense to the brain because it's to the left and we think of the left as
Yeah.
past. But if I was over on the left side of the stage, no, that wouldn't make sense. I'd have to go over to the right. And then Eric gave a Tony Robbins tip to us. He said Tony always uses his left, so the audience's right side of the stage, as where he'll lean in, and this is kind of the on the side or the security message point place. So think about that, how you want to use the stage and create some zones. If you're talking about backing up, you could always back up. If you know you're going to be talking about coming forward on something, start a little bit further back and then move forward.
Yeah. And the hand movements as well. Like we look at that because sometimes people use it in a certain way, like say, oh, my brain is, and they're touching the hand or my heart. But there's other times where people are doing, let's say, the Italian, where the hands are just constantly going. And
That would be more like me. But I believe I have learned to tone it down. You have to be comfortable. You have to be you, but definitely not with arms straight down by the side. What was that? There was a movie or a TV show. Oh, I can't remember, but where they were busting on Raquel Welch and that she danced with her arms stuck to her side. I can't remember where that was from. If somebody remembers, put it in the comments. Raquel Welch, we respect you.
I remember because I'd done a kind of like a 1 day thing with Eric, and he was doing a thing where they were tapping your hand just to try to be able to speak with the hands as an form of expression.
Yes. This is where feedback ideas from Eric differ from Toastmasters. One of the things that we did in the first level of the Business Freedom Speakers Academy was a way to get over ums and ahs and things like that. Whereas in Toastmasters, there's a clicker, like you train dogs with, which works. It's Pavlovian. It works, right?
People are hammering is it a xylophone? I don't know what you call the instrument, or the triangle. But I didn't like that, so I printed off a sign that says and we just get somebody to hold it up, so it doesn't disturb the speaker.
We have this little clicker thing, and I believe it's what they used in Catholic schools when you were misbehaving. I've seen this definitely used in movies. Obviously, I love movies. Ours is a clicker that you would get at a pet store. And if you or do something else with your speech that could be better and improved upon, you get clicked. And the click counter, who is often our word grammarian, keeps a tally of it and gives you feedback. Now with Eric, what we did was we'd have somebody stand behind us, and anytime we did something like that, they would just touch us lightly. It was instant and in the moment and kinesthetic. We felt it. It fixed it so much quicker. But in Toastmasters, we don't have somebody up on stage behind us. So this would be something you'd have to buddy up with and do with a friend or a small group. In a workshop, why not?
You could even do it.
You could do it. Your club would probably do it. I posted to my club so far. I haven't gotten a yes on that one.
Yeah. It's open to anything, so we can,
It could be an evening, I suppose, like an evening theme.
Oh, brilliant. Oh, cool. So listen, it's been fantastic. I know that there's plenty more that we talk about, but I want to put it into another episode. And how can people contact you, Ambika?
The best way to find me is myname.com. So it's my full name, ambikadevi.com. And I'll spell it out for you. AMBIKADEVI.com. From there, you can link over to my coaching site, which is ambikascoaching.com. You can link over to my speech site, which is speechesbyambika.com. And you can find all my Facebook pages and Instagram pages. I'd love for you to like and follow and interact with me. Ask me more questions. And if there's something in particular you want Roy and I to talk about in the future, let us know. We would love to come back and do it.
And I'll put all your links on the description so that the people can find it on the podcast. Thanks a million, Ambika. It was a pleasure as always.
Thank you, Roy.